And shortly thereafter, Louisiana changed its constitution again and kept within it this exception to its end of slavery.
I heard Angela Davis in a speech. She said that she broke down the 13th Amendment and its exception clause. Said we need a 21st century abolitionist movement.
When we got to 1901, the state of Louisiana ended its convict leasing program. Instead, the state bought that plantation and it became Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola. The largest physical state penitentiary in the United States. It's larger than the island of Manhattan.
%86 of Angola is actually black, even though black men of age to go to Angola in the state are also about 12% of the state's population. Once I got to Angola, it was like time stood still. Tractors, men on horseback with rifles, inmates with straw hats walking up and down cornfields, cotton fields, okra fields, picking, planting. The buildings had not been changed since the early 1800s. So it's like, I'm in slavery. If you're sentenced to a felony crime in the state of Louisiana that's violent, you're sentenced to hard labor. I was introduced to the field. I had a tool called a dish blank blade. It's a blade like a scythe, but they're expecting us to go hours on end swinging it. It's about 12 pounds. That doesn't sound like a lot, but once you swing it a few times, you get blisters in your hands, you start to really, really feel what this hard labor thing is about, because your life is on the line. You stop swinging, you get shot. Slavery is not history, and this is my real life.
When you talk about Louisiana State Penitentiary, people across the country would say, is that the place that has the rodeo? They put a card table out in the middle of the arena, put 4 chairs, and men who are incarcerated sit at the table with a deck of cards, and they release a ball. And the last person to move from that card table gets $100. When you think about this incentive pay, and you think about what someone would risk for $100, you have to wonder whether any of this is voluntary. We have not moved to the point where Black Louisianans are free from enslavement. It's more like free-ish.
So their argument is, we have every right to actually send you out, make more money off of you where you're not actually making any money at all. But we can also pat ourselves on the back and say that this is going to be some sort of way for you to build your character and rehabilitate yourself.
There's a corporation that gets money from your labor. Prison Enterprises is a company that solely benefits from the labor of the punished. And that is what you call institutionalized slavery, because they only pay 2 cents an hour, which is 40 cents a week. A bar of soap costs 89 cents. So you'd have to work 2.5 weeks even to buy a bar of soap.
They have to buy things so that they can work shirts, work boots. And there's something called union supply, and that's how you get these things. These are the same rates and somewhat higher than what we would pay for out here.
In context, a sick call, if you wake up one day and you feel ill, is $3. If you're out in the field and an emergency happens, a medical emergency, and you need an emergency sick call, that's $6. The way that the Department of Corrections compensates people with what they call incentive pay is that you might make those wages, but half of them go into a savings account and the other half become what you would think would be like accessible. except you can't access those funds until you've made a total of $250. So while funds are going into your account, they're being pulled back out for the costs that the state is incurring to provide you medical care. And your savings side, which can't be touched by those expenses, is not growing at any large rate. So you have individuals like some of our clients who may have been in for 19, 20 years and only made $100 that they're given when they walk out the door. And they were never able to access any of their incentive money while they were incarcerated.
And if you do not work, you can be sent to solitary confinement. If you cut yourself in the field, you can be sent to solitary confinement because it looks like you might have done it on purpose to get out of work.
I want people to really understand what prison labor looks like.
They're the folks who clean the floors, paint the walls, care to those who are dying, or do the tutoring and education programs.
Pick the produce that you see in Whole Foods and other grocers.
Those who are incarcerated in our prisons do a number of different aspects of labor.
Those who are incarcerated working those same jobs, putting forth that same skill in labor, are getting paid 20 cents at most.
There aren't any bathrooms in the field. Once you get to a certain age where you can't do anything, they have a hospice ward, and your bed sores aren't going to get taken care of. So these people are dying in prison, and our tax money is paying for it.
Decarcerated Louisiana began in Angola prison, sitting on a penal colony in the middle of nowhere. We were just an underground movement that began to be labeled as Decarcerated Louisiana in more later times at that point. But it started with just the brothers in prison wanting to see some type of fairness and justice in the system. Is one of the strongest brothers that I've met. Real street soldier. Used to be a rapper. Called him Kid Vicious at the time in New Orleans. He actually was one of the pioneers of New Orleans rap music. And he found himself with a life sentence coming into my cell in Angola prison. And we started his political education in that cell. We started playing chess together. We have to give our founders big shout outs. Ilamba is one of the most intelligent people that I've met. It was his idea to form Decarcerated Louisiana. Without that brother, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now.
And I was like, yo, if you're gonna put this together, you need somebody who's on the outside to be the person to talk to the representatives, the legislators and stuff like that. Aloma is brilliant, as you said before. He's great, but he's inside of a prison, and that's gonna cause some problems if he tries to be that person. And he said, I got the perfect person for you, Max. And he mentioned your name, Curtis Davis.
Decarcerated Louisiana is international. We started in Louisiana with the idea that said that Louisiana incarcerates more people per capita than any place on the planet Earth.
Louisiana has the highest number of people incarcerated. Louisiana has the highest percentage of people serving life without parole. And a lot of people, I'm realizing, think that when you get sentenced to life without parole, that you really don't spend your life in prison. Because before Truth in Sentencing Act, people would get sentenced to life and it'd be like 20 years to 30 years, just different numbers. But no, it's life. You're in prison for life.
We need to change that narrative and bring those numbers down.
Two important things that the Louisiana criminal system does that prevents us from ever really having meaningful change in our criminal system is that it kills people for crimes and it enslaves people for crimes. The death penalty and forced labor really remove all credibility from our system. And if we don't change those two parts before we continue to do the other work we talk about, it's just like putting Band-Aids on knife wounds that can't heal without those changes.
HB 196 is a bill that was presented to the House of Representatives this past legislative session. And what it was doing was removing the slavery exception clause from the Louisiana Constitution.
I talked to Edmund Jordan on a number of occasions about this, that he was very much excited about championing HB 196, which will end slavery.
House Bill 196 was Decarcerate Louisiana's first attempt to change the law, to take away the slavery exception clause. Our bill was sponsored by Representative Jordan from Baker or Baton Rouge area, and he was a black representative going up against a very conservative, majority Caucasian Senate representative panel. I knew that we would be in for a hard fight to take away this exception clause, but the mindset was that if slavery is bad, it's morally incorrect. If it was bad then, it should be bad now, and it shouldn't be any problem in 2021 to get this removed from law. That was naive and gullible thinking, right? By the time we went in, we realized that this is very, very serious.
The problem that I have when I actually read this is I think this might be one of the most dangerous bills we've seen this session.
Dangerous in the sense that we want to remove slavery from your laws. A country that's supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave, that still have black people enslaved at numbers that were higher than the clerk had in South Africa.
Decarcerate Louisiana had been preparing to testify before a committee at the state capitol. We got, it was around 24 hours or less than 24 hours notice about the committee hearing that we were going to have to be there. A lot of the things that we had prepared didn't go through. There were about 5 of us there that were able to testify, so it didn't go as we expected, but we got there and it seemed like the main players had already made up their minds.
I want to hear the testimony of other people, but I'm just giving you warning, I'm probably going to move to involuntarily defer the bill.
The dynamics whenever you walk into these committee hearings is set up to be intimidating. It's set up to show that they're more powerful and you're less powerful. Walking in, we seen that they were sitting up on a higher platform than us. They were facing us, and whenever we sat at the table, we were sitting kind of like at a lower stance than they were. That in itself is intimidating, you know, and then looking at their faces, either they're disinterested, looking at their phones, looking away, looking like they don't agree with you. Or, I mean, like I said, it was 5 legislators that voted in favor of this. So there were a few faces of empathy and care.
As we all know in here, it's difficult to find a job, difficult to find housing. And I just feel like this would be a good investment by the state as well to work on recidivism, but also allow people to assist their children and families while they're incarcerated. So I support this.
Brother Curtis Davis was there, as well as the rest of the organizers for Decarcerate Louisiana, and we had 9 white Republican senators there. And all 9 of them voted unanimously not to remove the exception clause and effectively allow slavery to continue legally in their state, despite the fact that 3 other states had already done the same thing without a problem.
This bill would have also been a constitutional amendment. So what we were doing was bringing forward legislation before lawmakers across Louisiana who are duly elected from various parts of the state to give us, the citizens and voters, the right within this state to nullify and repeal that slavery exception clause. So if the bill would have voted favorably out of committee and onto the state floor, we would have been voting on that as a constitutional amendment. But unfortunately, that didn't pass.
I hear people tell me a lot of times that this is symbolic. And I have so much pushback against that. First of all, we're a nation of laws. Well, what laws are we a nation of? The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. The second most supreme law is the state constitutions. That's what we put everything on. There's nothing in the Constitution that's symbolic.
In some ways, removing the exception likely would not change much about the day-to-day lives for those who are incarcerated, but it would start the process for trying to make that change.
The first thing that occurs is you get your constitutional rights back. The only rights that you're allowed are those that the prison industry has deemed you should have. They say that there's watchdogs who watch out for like your Eighth Amendment violations of cruel and unusual punishment, but this is happening all day, every day, all across America. So these Eighth Amendment violations aren't even being addressed that are happening in Louisiana prisons.
One of the things that people say, it's like, well, aren't there workplace safety rules that should keep someone safe when they're working in prison? And then we have these cases that say those don't apply to you if you're incarcerated.
There were other people who were incarcerated in other states who have brought forward their claims in federal court about being paid a fair minimum wage. And because of that slavery exception clause, their claim was not upheld because they are considered property of the state. They are considered a lower class of citizenship.
So when you talk about like why wouldn't ending the punishment clause on its own fix all of these problems? Because we have built a whole economy of labor that has been outside of the scope of our pre-existing laws for safety, for employment discrimination, for wage and hour. And we can't just stop at changing the punishment clause to our prohibition on slavery, but we can't exist any much longer if we don't change it. The federal courts, up to the United States Supreme Court, can stop actions being taken by states that violate the US Constitution. But states can change their laws in a way that create more protections for individuals than the federal Constitution. So eliminating, for instance, a provision allowing for continued slavery and indentured servitude in Louisiana could be done, but for instance, violating the US Constitution could not.
The states need to provide protection for their citizens from slavery and human trafficking, allowed by their own constitutions. And if they don't have any language in their constitution, then they need to put in anti-slavery language to protect their citizens from the federal amendment. And the reason we need to get all these states to do so is not only to protect their citizens, but also by the time we reach 2024, which is our projected date of ratification for the federal amendment, we'll already have enough legislators from the states, and we'll have that 3/4 number that we'll need to change history in this country.
New Orleans is the home of the civil rights movement. It's the birthplace of the civil rights movement.
If you ask the average person when was slavery abolished, they're going to tell you slavery was abolished in whatever time the encyclopedia says it was abolished in 1865 or whatever. But the real fact is slavery was never abolished.
Well, all we can do is just push forward with our work, and we can't give up. And the only thing that makes sense to all of us is to bring this bill forward again. My favorite abolitionist, Assata Shakur, Angela Davis. Whenever I come in spaces of challenging times or conflict, I think of their leadership and what they would do.
It's always come from the people. It was a fight. And so we realized that we're going to have to fight, and we're going to have to do that by getting people on board and getting people to know how important this is and what's happening to their loved ones.
And so that whole idea of that, like, being very omnipresent, especially in the jails, and we know it's still omnipresent from juvie halls to the prisons. Music and call and response and rhythm and just keeping our voices audible so we remember we're still here has always been integral to our survival.
The other night I was talking to my wife and she said, what do you think the world is supposed to look like after you do all this? I picture a world where when I drive down the streets and a police car gets behind me, my heart doesn't stop beating hard. I'm not afraid. I picture a world where there's not an eviction notice on my door, even though I make more than the average person. I envision a world where we don't have food banks, where everybody has food, clothing, and shelter. I just envision a world where we can finally have peace.
We have the opportunity to actually end slavery in the United States for the first time in our history. And I'm hoping that people that watch this documentary come to the conclusion that we have come to, that there is nothing more important in this country right now than ending slavery once and for all. So stand up now and let's do this.
Senator Luno moves final passage of House Bill 298. Machines are open. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay, and the Secretary will open the machines. 34 yeas and 0 nays, and the bill's finally passed. Senator Luno moves to reconsider the vote by which the bill passed. Lay that motion on the table without objection.
I want to run all of the credits, but I'm not going to.
I believe in myself and my people. I'm an ex-slave from Louisiana. My favorite book would have to be Les Miserables by Victor Hugo.
Trying to turn
when
this.
I read it, I began to understand the machinations to how a people, how a people is run. Les Miserables is a design that puts more people on the square bottom to where.
Okay.
And you can click that.
All right.
That's
Technology. It's great when it works, right? Again, let me just thank everybody so much for being here with us today. Again, this is our first hybrid, and I want to think that it worked pretty good, y'all. We had a few little glitches, but it worked well. That was powerful, right? And it's eye-opening as well. Things that we really didn't or don't think about on a daily basis, but are real to people that we know and to people that we love. Let me just start with law. Since I'm a lawyer, I want to start it with that premise, and then I want to introduce this dynamic panel that we have here with us today. Let me start with the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, any place subject to their jurisdiction. Let's go to Louisiana. Louisiana Constitution, Article 1, Section 3. This is the amendment. This is the section of the Louisiana Constitution that was amended in 2022. You heard them say in 2021 that it was offered as law and that it did not pass, but it did pass in 2022. And I'm going to tell y'all how it passed in just a little bit. But here is what it said prior to. No person shall be denied the equal protection of the laws, No law shall discriminate against a person because of race or religious ideas, beliefs, or affiliations. No law shall arbitrarily, capriciously, or unreasonably discriminate against a person because of birth, age, sex, culture, physical condition, or political ideas or affiliations. Slavery, this is the important part, slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited except in the latter case as punishment for crime. During the 2022 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature, House Bill 298, which became Act 246 by Representative Edmund Jordan, allows voters, the voters of Louisiana, to vote on what is Amendment 7 on the November 8th ballot. If passed, it will effectively outlaw slavery for persons who are convicted of a crime and sentenced to hard labor, at least theoretically. There is some discussion that the amendment as written may not do what it was intended to do. The actual language of the amendment and the Act 246 differ. And let me just read to you what we are trying to, what is the way that the statute ended up coming out of the legislature. It says no law shall, the same what we just read, but I'm gonna read section B, section 3B, slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited, period. That's what it says. Oh, but there's a subparagraph 2B. I'm sorry, subparagraph 2(1). It says subparagraph 1 of this paragraph shall not apply to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. For those of you who've had your first semester of con law, let's just all say it together, overly broad. What does that even mean? The good thing is that that should someone challenge this, that the legislative intent was clear. And I think that argument certainly can be made about what the legislative intent was and whether Louisiana will apply the law as it was intended. Representative Jordan, I know you guys have heard a lot of conversations about him being opposed to his own bill. Well, this is the portion of his own bill that he's opposed to, and that is the portion that was amended into the bill that he submitted. Representative Jordan has said that he's not really taking a stand on this, although it has been reported in the media that he was. But he said to me personally, and y'all can quote me on this, that he will not be actively opposing this bill, but that he would be working in the next legislative session to clean this up so that that language is removed. But the thing that you hear from all of the advocates is, we know that law is cumulative. It has always been cumulative. Let's get this off the books now and we'll work on the other part of it. And we'll fight if anybody attempts to subvert what the intent of was, the intent of the legislation was. I want to read for you finally just the language as it appears on the ballot. And here it is. Do you support an amendment to prohibit the use of involuntary servitude except as it applies to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice? Say it with me now. Overly broad. Okay. All right. I am so excited to share with you. Curtis, go get that book for me, please. I am so excited to share with you the writer of the book, Slaves. I have the writer of the book, I have the director and producer of the documentary, and I have one of the best civil rights attorneys in Louisiana as panelists for you here today. Let me just apologize because we had that technical difficulty. We have a limited amount of time. Y'all, do not leave here without this book. Do not leave here without this book. It is fun. I'm getting an autograph copy, just so y'all know. I'm getting an autograph. So you guys should make sure that you get an autograph copy as well. They have a class that's going to come in here at 1 o'clock. And I apologize to you guys. If I have to do this again, where I just invite all of you just on Zoom, I will do it. I will do it, and y'all will come. Yes, they will come. Okay, so let me just start with Curtis Ray Davis II. Curtis, tell us what this fight. Share with us in the briefest one, your briefest version. This is your life. This is not theoretical. This is something that you lived. So tell the audience some of the things that you've already shared with me that endeared you to me, that makes him my brother for the rest of his life.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for taking out the time to watch the documentary, to learn more about what it is that we're doing. I was a slave for 25 years, 9 months, and 11 days in Angola prison. I've picked cotton. I've ran around under gunpoint and was made to do things against my will that proved that I was not a human being anymore. This bill for us is not about labor. This bill is the part that you guys heard. Slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited, with the period at the bottom. You really don't care what comes after that, because this is a property issue. I dropped a weight on my foot when I was in prison and got charged with destruction of state property for breaking my foot. Human beings shouldn't own people, and entities shouldn't own people. This is serious, y'all. They say wait till next year. We're going to get it again. You'll never get another chance in this lifetime to get this on the books. It took me everything in our organization, everything. And I didn't see no help there, by the way. So help us by educating people and get this out of the Constitution once and for all.
Thank you so much, Curtis. Ringo Bosley. And Ringo is the producer, director of this movie. I'm calling it a movie. This is a documentary. And I want, Ringo, tell us about your experience in directing this and how you got involved with it.
Yeah, so first I just want to give a hand, because he did so much for so long. So, but also, I basically co-founded Policy Films LLC, and originally going to be a nonprofit.
Mic up, Ringo.
Originally, it was going to be a nonprofit, Louisiana Reform, and basically back in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, I worked with my colleagues and we put this together, and eventually we ended up rebranding to Policy Films LLC. So we've done a lot of work with the legislature and other things as well. And this is just the first of our hopeful mini projects to raise awareness of different issues like human rights and environmental issues and everything that we deal with, and try to better the government and everything we deal with.
Thank you so much, Ringo. Let me now introduce you to Professor Ada Goodley Lampkin. She is the director of the Louis A. Berry Civil Rights Institute here at Southern University Law Center. And as I said, one of the best civil rights lawyers next to me that you'll ever meet. Ada.
Thank you so much, Professor. But I'm very happy to be here in this program. We don't have very much time left, but I want to give a commitment to partner with you again to make sure that we can discuss this in full, the ramifications. A lot of people talk about this being a symbolic act. This goes far beyond symbolism. And if you are aware, have someone that you love or know that was incarcerated, then you can understand how important of an issue this is, not just to have a symbol, but to have humanity brought back into our system. We are constantly researching, and I know some students here probably are familiar with the work of the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project in understanding, assessing the last vestiges of slavery. Jim Crow was not a period that was well investigated. And so we don't even know how far the system went to disenfranchise Black communities, but we do know that we have an opportunity to undo the recidivism that is baked into our system, because our system of incarceration is not designed to produce citizens that will not come back to prison, right? They are designed to do exactly what they do. And I think that this is one small step, but it is one necessary step into going farther with our criminal justice system, because without a reckoning, there is no progress.
Thank you so much. Convicted of a felony in Louisiana, lose your humanity because you become enslaved and subject to involuntary servitude. Lose your freedom for a felony, you lose your voting rights. You lose your ability to live in certain housing. You lose your ability to receive scholarships and grants to go to college. You lose your ability to get licenses in certain professions. Yeah, it's set up for recidivism. It is set up to continue and to perpetuate involuntary servitude. And if you do get out, families, you want to talk, my program here at Southern University Law Center is called the Vulnerable Communities and Peoples Initiative. We study poverty and the barriers that keep people from moving out of poverty. You want to predict whether someone die poor. All you have to do is look at them and the conditions in which they were born. 2/3 of the people who are born in poverty in this nation die in poverty. Let me go all the way back home to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We're gonna fix that. All right. So we've got to let this class come in. We're gonna go out into the atrium and we will stay there. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, books for sale. Wait, hang on just a second, y'all. Books for sale. Curtis is gonna, you got a pen, Curtis? Curtis is gonna, here, I'm gonna give you this one. That's a good one. Curtis is going to sign your book if you purchase it. It is only $20, y'all, but it is history in a way that you've never seen. For those of you who are on the line, who are seeking SULC credit, please go to email us at vcpi@sulc.edu and just put in your name and your bar number and a phone number, and we will give you your SULC credit. Thank you to all of you who participated here in person, and to all of you who took the time to be with us online. Thank you so very much. We're going to do this again, and we're going to have adequate time. Professor Listash, I saw you back there. I want to acknowledge that you were here and to say thank you for being with us, and to all of the faculty and staff and the students from Southern University Law Center. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.